All right, guys, this is real life. I do not have makeup on. My hair is wet because I just got out of the shower. I'm not really in the mood to film, but it is almost the end of February and I need to get this video out or it's not going to happen. So here I am. This is me being honest with you. This is going to be my January wrap up. Let's get this done. Before we get into everything, I just want to touch a little bit on the new rating system that I have adopted in 2025. Essentially, I have decided to take a break from the star ratings and start using letter grades. And the reason is because I just feel letter grades do a better job at reflecting my true feelings about the book. I don't dislike the stars and I don't think it's necessarily bad. We're gonna try it. If it doesn't work, if I end up hating it, obviously I can go back to using the star system, but for now, this is what we're gonna do. So let's go ahead and start with the DNF, and then I think we're gonna do a lowest rating to highest rating. Cece and I buddy read, or attempted to buddy read, Cookie Bait by Ashley Funk. This was on KU. I think it's still there. I'll put a picture here. Synopses really intrigued both of us. We thought that it sounded cute and just cringy enough to suit us. Cece and I both like a little bit of cringe with our rom-coms. And I think we got maybe 3 or 4 chapters in and we were like, this is really bad. Like, this went beyond cringy into secondhand embarrassment. Like, it just wasn't good. The biggest thing for us, or at least for me, was that the main characters could not stop narrating about each other's bodies. And I'm sitting here just going, okay, we get it. He's hot. She's hot. Can we just move on and have a conversation, perhaps? Speaking of that, the dialogue that they did have was very shallow. There's hardly any emotion behind it, hardly any depth to it. The writing in general wasn't very layered. It was very surface level, if you will. Because the premise of the story is actually very cute. We follow Harper and Blake, and Harper's roommate, I think her name is Tessa, but I can't remember. She thinks that her and Harper should just completely give up dating apps and use Harper's amazing cookie recipe to cookie bait dates. And she meets Blake, and their initial meeting is just terrible, and the second meeting is not much better, and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't for Cece either. This was a D. So I had a C-, I had a C+, I had a B-, I had a B+, I had an A-, an A, and an A+. So we're gonna start with a C-. This was Never Miss by Melissa Koslin. This was the next book that Cece and I did buddy read together. This is what we started reading in lieu of Cookie Bait. We were very excited to read this because we both loved Dangerous Beauty by the same author, but this book, it just fell very flat for me. I didn't really care about either of the characters. The writing was really weird. It felt like it was written by a completely different person. Like, it didn't feel like it was written by Melissa Koslin. And Jamie Gordy did mention to me that this was her debut novel, so I did take that into consideration with my rating, because originally this was going to be like a D. I did give her a little bit of grace and, bumped it up to a C-. I just didn't love it. So in this one we follow, let's see, I'm struggling to remember even the names of the people. Cadence, I think is her name, and I don't remember his name. I really don't. But she is an ex-spy. There's something with her and with Ebola, and he's tied to the Ebola, and he's tied to something else, and she's running from something. There's a romance between the two main characters. The best part of the book was Cadence's coon cat. What do they call her? A Maine Coon. Really big cat, and his name is Mac, and he was great. And I think he kept the story from being absolutely terribly boring. Yeah. I just kept waiting for it to get better, and it just didn't get any better. Taken with Trouble by Janessa Fayeth. This was a C+. It was probably closer to a B-, but this one follows Sabrina or Serena and Kim. And we get a lot of White Collar vibes, the TV show. This is the second book in a series that this author, I think, is writing. And all of the books, I think, are going to have, like, TV themes through them. The first book had psych themes through it, and I bet he read that with Celestria back in August. The first book was called Date with Danger, and we follow Caleb and Amelia. And Caleb is an FBI agent who thinks that Amelia is his target, and Amelia just is at the wrong place at the wrong time. And well, he thinks that she's involved with his target. His target is this dude named Liam, who's like this art thief. And he thinks that Amelia is his mistress or his assistant or both. And it's actually very cute because there's lots of Psych references. And Psych is like my favorite TV show of all time. So that's like the main reason I read it. But the second book is actually about Caleb's partner, Serena. It is Serena. It's not Sabrina. It's Serena. And Liam, the art thief, and a romance ensues there, and it's really good. It's really cute. I will say that there are moments of pretty significant sexual tension between the characters, so if that's something you're sensitive to or you don't like, you may want to avoid this series and this author in general, because from what I've heard, this is pretty normal for her. It's not naughty. It's very clean. It doesn't like cross a line into like open door relationships. Cold Pursuit by Nancy Meal. Was supposed to read this in December for the Tinsel and Tales because this was one of the books that Steve selected for me. And I very much enjoyed this. This was a fun ride. This follows River Ryland and Tony St. Clair, and they are former FBI partners. And River has significant PTSD, and Tony is starting to like have some memory loss, if you will. Anyway, they both move back to St. Louis and decide to open an investigation firm together. And they're best friends. And they take on this case for this woman who lost her 20-something-old son 4 years ago. And while they know that he's probably dead, that it's a cold case, you know, that he's been missing 4 years, he's probably not alive, decide to take the case to help give this woman some closure. And it's just such a good story. Yeah, this was a C+. This was a B- for me. I very much enjoyed this. I really like River as a character. I really like Tony as a character a lot too. And the writing is pretty good. I am hoping that there's some romance that develops between the two because we don't get a ton of it in this first book. A lot of it really is the backstory of the two characters and like how they've kind of come to where they're at right now in tandem to the mystery, which is trying to find this woman's son. So I'm really hoping that in the second book, we get a little bit of slow burn between River and Tony because they're both amazing. Very much enjoyed. I very much recommend this if you enjoy like mysteries and action. Is very, very, very good. Just a kind of a little bit of a content warning. There are chapters or little blurbs that we get from the killer's POV. And so that gets a little bit creepy at times. So if that's something that you're sensitive to, you may want to forego this series as well. But it's really good. And the faith content is very good. Okay, the next two books I want to talk about are part of a trilogy that I read over the course of the last couple of months, and that is Insurgent and Allegiant. This is the second and third book in the Divergent series. I do have the first book too. Let me grab that. They do look a lot prettier without the dust jackets on. I want to show you guys how much prettier they are without the dust jackets. So there's Divergent. There is Insurgent. Yeah, I'm gonna leave them off. They look so much better without them. And And there is Allegiant. So this is a dystopian young adult trilogy that follows Tris, or Beatrice, and it takes place in futuristic Chicago, like way, way in the future, like when there's mass destruction and ruin. The country has been divided into factions. I don't have all the factions memorized, but at a certain age, you get to take this like aptitude or skills test that will tell you like what gifts you have that would best, or what your gifts are and how they would best suit each of the different factions. And then they recommend which faction you choose. You're born into a faction, but then, like I said, at a certain age, you get to choose another, whatever faction you want to go on. And the factions are kind of split up based on like your personality and your skills. Kind of sort of think like the houses of Hogwarts. I know one of them is bravery. Another one is like honesty. I think another one is... I really don't remember them all. Remember them, go ahead and put them down in the comments. But I was really nervous to read this. This is another trilogy that Steve really wanted me to read. And I was nervous to read this because it's not something that's in my comfort zone. It's not typically a genre that I read, but y'all, this was very unputdownable for me. I flew through these books like so fast-paced. Will say it is written in first person present tense, which is not my preferred way to read. And at first it did kind of bother me, but eventually the story just kind of like distracted me enough to where I just didn't care. And now it's like, I laughed, I cried a lot, actually. This trilogy is it's so good, and I can't recommend it enough. I've already read the second book with Hannah Beth over at Hannah's Book Cafe, and she did not feel the same way about this trilogy that I do, so take that what it's worth. And I'm usually the unpopular opinion, so when I went into it, I was like, this is a very beloved series, I'm gonna end up hating it. This met all of the hype for me. I know there's a lot of controversy over the way she ended this, and I understand why so many people were upset about it. I actually gave a spoiler to Celestia because she doesn't want to read this, and she is of the opinion that the majority of people are, that it's just the worst ending ever. I understand why you would think it is, but y'all, it had to happen. I just don't see how it could have ended any other way and still be an epic love story, because that's what this is. Yes, there's this dystopian world, and there's this adventure, and there's this action, and there's this battle, and this uprising, but ultimately this is a epic love story between Tris and For, and it would not have been the epic love story that it is without that ending. So I'm the unpopular opinion. Once again, loved this. The first book was an A+, the second book was probably like an A-, and the third book was a solid A. But overall, as a whole, this was an A series for me. I loved it. Ripped and Shipped by Savannah Scott. And actually, Ripped and Shipped should probably go before the Divergent series, because I do think that one's better. So I probably should have talked about this book first, but Ripped and Shipped by Savannah Scott. This is an A. This is the 7th and final book in the Getting Shipped series, and I have to be honest with you guys, I was so scared. I was like, there's going to be cliffhangers, there's going to be all of this stuff, I'm going to have all these questions. She did such a good job. Like, the way she ended everything, I feel like she just like tied it in a neat little bow and handed it to me as a present. It was so good. But this one follows LMA and Chris, and LMA is kind of the town outcast. Everybody kind of just doesn't like her. They think she's crazy. They think she's like lost her marbles. LMA has a very successful Instagram and YouTube following of millions. Y'all, she has got millions of subscribers. and followers. And for this reason, the small town of Bordox, where she lives, the people there think she's very shallow. They think that she's very full of herself, very high maintenance, very materialistic, and kind of stupid, like kind of an airhead. And it's really kind of interesting because the entire time you're reading this series, you're kind of only getting that perspective. And as a reader, you kind of are like agreeing that this girl's crazy. She's like insane. To tell you that not only is this my favorite book in the series, I think Ella May is my favorite character in this series. From the whole cast of characters, I can confidently say that Ella May is my favorite character. And it's so good. This one has all my favorite tropes. It's got fake dating. It's got like enemies to more, friends to more. Yeah, it's just so good. There really wasn't a third act breakup that I can remember. What I have to say is that Savannah Scott just has mastered this art. Like, yes, this is a rom-com, and there's gonna be some of those cringy Hallmark moments as you're reading it, but she writes with such emotion and such depth, and really makes you care about these people in a way that I just can't explain. And so I am definitely planning to not only read the series again, but I would eventually like to buy the series and own it because it's just so good. Okay, last book I want to talk about, which is my favorite book of the month. Screwed-Up Letters by C.S. Lewis. This is an A+. This is 100%. This is perfection right here in a fiction novel. It's epistolary. It's gritty. It's deep. It's emotional. It's raw. It just makes you think so much. It's so good. And I don't really know. I don't want to say too much because I think the best thing to do is to go into something like this blindly. But this is about two demons. One of them is the uncle, and another one's the nephew, and he's writing letters to his demon nephew about how to tempt and claim Christians. And it's so good. That's all I'm going to say. It's just so good. I'll definitely be reading through this again this year. It's beautiful. And you guys, I found a matching copy of Mere Christianity. So now I have both of these. I'm very excited. I'm going to start collecting these editions. I actually paid full price for this. I got this at Hobby Lobby. I thought it was on special, but it wasn't. I was like, I don't care. I'll just buy it anyway. And so now I have two of this edition. Read Mere Christianity this year as well. I read it like forever ago in college, and it's been forever, but I want to reread it. So yay! A+, 100%. Loved it. So good. So good. So that was my January wrap up, y'all. I know it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit kind of all over the place, but I needed to get it done. So here we are. Anyway, I hope you guys have a beautiful week. It is currently Monday, and I love you all so much, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.